Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Joe Sadler. I'm the CRO here at Traverse Automation. Today, we're going to be talking about schedule changes in the travel industry, particularly with low-cost carriers and how it's becoming a bit of a manual nightmare. Just to let you know the structure of the call today, feel free to ask questions throughout. There is a chance for Q&A at the end. We're probably not going to be on the call any longer than about half an hour. But yeah, like I said, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to dive in. We have recorded this as well. So for those who are watching this on playback, feel free to drop us any questions if needed. If anyone has any trouble hearing me throughout the call either as well, just feel free to dive in. So everyone should be able to see my screen. Yeah, cool. Okay, so just a bit of an intro to us, no sales pitch. Here at Traverse Automation, we've been helping automate in travel for over 16 years now, helping them with automation, data and AI solutions to help process manual tasks more effectively. The main problem that we're going to be talking about today is online travel agents and tour operators. Essentially, when it comes to low-cost carriers, how they don't really help the situation when it comes to a change in schedule or cancellation. We know this is probably about 90% of our conversations right now are revolving around this problem, and we're going to talk about solutions, things that you could do internally, and also automation that's available out there for helping you. So typically the process is that low-cost carriers will either send individual notifications to email inboxes, whether that's one or multiple, or to notify of a change or cancellation. Sometimes it's multiple emails with the same information, duplicate notifications from certain suppliers, and then admin staff essentially have to check through every single email, compare it against what's in the booking system or internal system, and then make a human decision on what to do. Low-cost airlines often, also change their format of notification and change, what email it's sent from. And if the reseller had an internally built email scraping or automation bot, it's likely that this could end up triggering the system to break. We've seen this in certainly some of the larger travel agencies and OTAs, where they're really kind of struggling to automate things themselves, because when there is a change from the supplier, often what happens is that it's hard to control. They don't know it breaks until it's too late. So a lot of low-cost carriers don't offer APIs. Ryanair, probably the biggest discussion. OTAs who use GDS systems will often have direct links with main flight providers, but not necessarily with low-cost carriers. I'm not the first person to say this, but Ryanair do not like working with OTAs, as they want to provide that direct pricing to their customers. And ultimately, it's a lot of manual labor going through these emails, dragging them out, comparing what's in the booking system, and Ryanair in particular are kind of making this quite difficult for OTAs and tour operators to really kind of provide that service. So the impacts or the impact of schedule change and cancellations is, and customers not being notified. Peak season, the last thing you want is humans digging through emails, notifying customers. You want to reallocate that resource. Customers finding out when it's too late. We've heard a few horror stories from some very large businesses lately where they're not hearing about their flight change in schedule or cancellation until it's too late. Until the people are at the airport calling up and saying, why didn't you notify me of this change in schedule or cancellation? And then we're often hearing that there's a backlog that they're going through as well. It could be obviously really bad for your brands. The representation of your brand is really key to make sure customers keep coming back to you. Customers will not return. A lot of companies, by not kind of automating this process, are creating extra customer service issues. It costs a lot of money for humans to be sat there all day. It's not the most appealing of tasks either, to be going through email inboxes, comparing this information, and then actioning it. And the last thing you want is your reputation being damaged because you weren't able to notify an airline a customer directly of their change in schedule or cancellation. Just going to talk about the usual process. So airlines would usually email into a centralized email inbox any change in schedule or cancellation. The internal agents would then obviously have to look through the email inbox, compare that to what's in the booking system, and then they would then have to make a judgment call as to whether they need to notify the customer, get a customer service representative to call up to reschedule, or get an alternative pricing. And this could be quite a heavy human task. What we're finding at the moment is that humans probably can only process about 15,000 schedule changes per year manually. Now, I know a few GDS systems, file things into queue systems, which is fine. But ultimately, there's still a lot of manual kind of viewing, manual processing. Not often that GDS systems will offer kind of certain rules, which then gets rid of things that are under like 10 minutes. So the usual process can be quite human heavy and can be quite costly as the business grows. There is an automatic process, so an RPA solution that will scan email inboxes. Will then compare that against what's in the booking system automatically. It will then make a justified decision based on a set of rules that customers will set. So if it's under 10 minutes, for example, there's probably no need to notify the customer. So we can either upload that directly into an internal system to notify the system of the change, and even create automation directly to the customers in some cases to just let them know there's a change in 10 minutes. However, if it's over 15 minutes or over 10 minutes, or there's been a cancellation, we can then raise that as an exception. Now, some customers often like it being fed directly through to the customer services team to then action. Alternatively, we can actually create RPA solution to automate the communication directly with the customer, sometimes even notifying them of the options of change that they've been given. Now, a question that I often get at this point is, well, if I receive, from EasyJet, multiple schedule changes, I don't want to just forward that email to the customer. I want my brand to deal with it. We can create automatic branded emails that give them the alternatives. We can even just ask the customer to get in touch, or we can push that into a queue for customer services teams to then react. So, compared to obviously the usual process, very human heavy. Humans will have to look through the email inboxes. Human will have to make a decision, compare that against what's in the booking system, make a decision whether it needs any further action. The automatic process removes that human, make sure that all schedule change and cancellations are picked up, and make sure that your customer's being notified, which ultimately means they're coming back. We can also do further automation. Some customers require WhatsApp or text. That's also fine to be looked at, providing your system has that functionality. And I think just one more thing to touch upon. There are ways that we can feed it into GDS queues. Certainly with Travelport, we've been in discussion with recently about feeding low-cost carriers directly into the queue system, tuning any that are under 10 minutes, for example, by a set of rules, and actually create an automation throughout that process as well. So those who are using Travelport, maybe be a good time to talk. But the superior carriers obviously are automatically dispensed into that queue. But it's all about the low-cost carriers, this conversation. So I'm going to now open up to the floor. Feel free to ask us any questions about your current processes when it comes to your manual process, when it comes to schedule change and cancellation of flights. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to dive in.
Yeah, Joe, I've got one. When a flight's cancelled, can you also automate an email with the new flight options?
Yes. So just going back to this, the automation here, we can create a set of rules. There is further development needed. We need to look at your system, but ultimately automating that process to provide them the alternative flight options we can do. Possibly not with all airlines that we can then offer them the chance to book that directly through that link, unless your system had that option. But ultimately, yes, we can create a branded version, letting them know of the alternative flight options. Did that answer your question, Sean?
Yeah, you did.
Anyone else got any questions? Anyone can relate to this pain?
I've a question, Joe.
Yeah.
So a lot of conversations that I've had lately with businesses have been mentioning low cost carriers, Ryanair in particular, that they would send through like multiple email addresses and also change the format from time to time.
Yeah.
How does this sort of like process obviously make sure that that's being automated every time with like a change of format or a different email that's coming through?
So, well, we often find that a lot of suppliers could send through 3 or 4 different versions of that schedule change in 3 or 4 different formats. I think, if I'm right, your question is relating to would we check that 3 or 4 times to just make sure it's relevant? Yes, we could. I think everyone, in particular, Ryanair, they do send it in different emails from different emails. They often will, send it in 3 or 4 different formats, or sometimes, we found with EasyJet that they might send 3 of the same version. It would be checked based on a set of rules. So we would use AI to obviously and automation to trigger those checks and then process accordingly. So yes, to answer your question.
Perfect.
See the GDS queue option that you mentioned there. So just say, for example, a Ryanair, I'm assuming that the automation is taking the content from the email and then pushing it into GDS format to drop into a queue.
What GDS are you using, Stephanie? Sorry.
We're using Travelport.
Yeah, so essentially, we would push it in the same format that the superior carriers currently. So your superior carriers that are currently feeding into that queue, it would be fed in exactly the same format. The only thing that you can't do from that queue, unless you book through Travelport for Ryanair in particular, that's something that manually would have to be obviously booked off system, I guess, because I'm pretty sure you don't have an API to book through GDS for Ryanair, do you?
Not yet.
I mean, I won't hold my breath on that one. But yeah,
I keep being told it's on the cards, but yeah.
I mean, we spoke to Travelport the other day. The main thing that we're going to speak to the likes of Amadeus, Galileo as well, but we know that we can essentially take that context from the email and feed it into the queue if it's not matching the original time. So if there's been a change outside 10 minutes or cancellation, then that's
in terms of actually actioning the schedule change with Ryanair in this example, that would still need to be done on direct, like through the notification, the original notification.
Correct. But I think the main thing that we're saying is that if it needs a human action, we're pushing it into a queue. So you've got one area that you can look at all schedule changes. The issue is at the moment, you've got humans that are trawling through email inboxes, sometimes might not pick that up, and then sometimes might not action that change. So it's all about making sure you're in control of that in a first view. What we can do though, because I know that Travelport has an email functionality, so we can at least notify the customer to get in touch, or we can even notify, we put that on the list to be actioned as a priority, for example. Normally changing schedule is in a good timely fashion. But ultimately, at least you get one view of all the changes that need to be actioned.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Anyone else have any questions?
Hi, yeah, can I ask, would this technology and this process work with ferry companies as well as with ferry companies? Yeah.
Yeah, so we have been in touch with someone who has like 5 or 6 different stages to a trip, and obviously one triggers a problem for the next or the visit to the next. So it depends. I would have to look at your overall schedule of what that might look like. But every company that we work with would have a different set of rules, different set of timeline, or different offering. If it's just one ferry change, then it's a lot more simpler. Then that one ferry change might change multiple issues in the process. So I'd definitely be interested to look at that before obviously saying that it works exactly the same as this. But if it's manually processed at the moment, Emily, then the likelihood is that we probably can find an automatic way to process that. Do you do that via, is that off system at the moment and then into like a booking or CRM system, is it?
At the moment we have an inbox where we get all the emails about cancellations. The agent reads through that and then manually sends off the notifications.
Well, yeah, if it's just a case of, comparing it against what was the original booking and then forwarding that on to a customer, then fine, we can do that. If you wanted to be in control of that to get them an alternative, for example, or, amend their entire trip, then we can push that into an action of some sort or raise it as an exception for your team to then action.
Okay, and we'll get sometimes, 50 emails about one notification. I think ferry companies are even more complicated than flights by the sound of it. So is that a problem? Because you've mentioned 3 or 4 is.
It's a case of when they come into the email inbox, we would scrape the information, compare it, action it. So it's like a human would do it, but it's automatically done.
Okay.
So yeah, it'd be good to look at that. When you've got time, just to see if there's anything that we can help with.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. Do we have any other questions? Anyone else struggling with any kind of other pains that they want to just use this time for? No? Okay. Well,
question before we do shut off. Sorry, Joe, I was waiting to see if there was anyone from anyone else.
yeah,
I'm sure you may have covered this already, but obviously we've spoken quite a bit about low cost carriers and obviously the schedule changes. Does this work for like the superior carriers as well, or is it purely low cost?
superior as well, but the superior carriers do offer a lot more support, like APIs, etc., direct into booking systems. So yes, it can, but we would find that a lot of companies are in control of those. That being said, we often come across people who have problems because their system's bespoke, and they've created their own queue system. So yeah, it's a case of case by case. If you're manually processing it at the moment, then yes, we can. Cool. I think that's all the questions. If anyone does have any questions or wants to get some time with us to talk about any kind of internal battles when it comes to processing and manually processing documentation, or getting your systems to talk better, then get in touch, and yeah, we'll happily have an exploratory chat with you. Thanks everyone for your time.